Okay, since I was talking about the motors inside of Nikon lenses, some Fuji, actually quite a few people asked me, like, what's inside my Fuji? That certainly depends on the lens. They're linear electromotors. They're kind of like voice coils. Not all of a Fuji lenses are the same. I think actually the 27mm Pancake, for example, is a stepper motor. I know that 10 to 24 Nikkor is also a stepper motor. The 90mm that I have is a quad linear. The 100 to 400 is a dual linear. The 50 to 140 is a triple linear. It means there's actually 3 or 4 depending on the lens. Like the 16 to 55 that I have, the 2.8, 16 to 55 Fuji is a dual linear. It means there's 4, 3, or 2 linear motors that are inside there. I don't know if you know how the inside of a hard drive works, but we actually have the armature down here, and there's a little voice coil. Taking apart thousands of hard drives to extract the magnets, by the way. By actually changing the current that actually passes through that voice coil, it'll actually alternate where it's at over top of that magnet. So if we actually just take the same premise and stick it on its side, if you actually look down like a Fuji lens, you could hear it flop. That clunking noise, by the way, when the power is turned off on your Fuji lens, you drop it for you, clunk, clunk, clunk. That means the motors obviously are not active. They're actually sitting on rails. And what it looks like on the inside of the linear electromagnets that drive your Fujifilm lens, say the 90mm, you got 4 of these, or 3 in the 50 to 140 Fuji. They're actually sitting on top of a metal rail, like this, with a magnet right here, but they're inside of a metal box. And it takes the focusing motor, and it actually, by changing the current in that, it's not shaped exactly like this, but it basically looks like this. It's kind of like the voice coil actuator on your speaker that actually drives your speaker. Well, think of a speaker laying on its back where the electromagnet is actually driving the coil to push the speaker in and out. It is actually driving. These basically don't break, by the way. People that actually repair Fujifilm lenses, unless you drop it, I mean, everything needs to be fixed if it's broken if you mess it up, but on their own, they're pretty damn flawless, and there's no gears. Hard drives keep rocking and rolling. The armatures, by the way, and the armature actually being driven on hard drives break down all the time. But what breaks down is not this; it's head crash or it's ferromagnetic. The loss of the ferromagnetic information is on the hard drive platter, but as far as the armature breaking down, no, that's not how hard drives break down. So they're basically flawless, and there's extremely little friction, and there are no gears. So what it's actually doing, there's a magnet on your lens as it's sitting straight up and down, and changing the current relative to the neodymium magnet that's inside that little metal box. It's actually going up and down and adjusting the focus. Depending on the size of the driven element of the particular lens, you'll have 2 of these linear motors, or 3, or in the case of the 90mm, 4. And that is what is driving the autofocus system inside your Fujifilm lenses. Basically, a little voice coil like this on a box that is being driven on a rod up and down. And there's really very little there to fail, and there's insanely little friction. And the neodymium magnet isn't going to break down. I mean, it's a single piece. I mean, 20-year-old hard drives, the magnets in them, there's still one in here, are just as the way I extract them, by the way. They're just as good as the day they were made. And the voice coils don't break down, so that's really good news. So of all those people that were, I'm gonna pry this voice coil out of the armature. Actually, sometimes they're glued in there really good. So all those people that actually asked me about, this one's glued in there really good, asked me about Fujifilm lenses. That is what is driving them. Is a linear electromotor with no gears, nothing really to break down. Honestly, very, very reliable. You say, well, the hard drives break down all the time, so that seems bad. Now, what breaks down in a hard drive is not the actuator. It's head crash or ferromagnetic depolarization, or usually this thing back here, the hard drive controller or the SATA bridge, which is really not technically part of the hard drive. What breaks down the hard drive is not this thing, and that is what is in your Fujifilm lens. So I need to make sure when I make the hard drive analogy, people are like, oh no, hard drives break down all the time. But yes, but not due to this part. This part, no. However, these heads do break down, but there's no heads. There's no heads inside your lens. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. Bye.